challenges and how to reimagine ourselves irrespective of the challenges in front of us. It could be COVID or a business, and what are the new disruptive technologies in front of us. Experts are lined up to talk about this today as well in the main event. Last but not the least, this is not the new thing which I'm presenting. Aerospace industry is a very legacy, and because of the nature of the business and the business we are in, high amount of catastrophe, we always take a lot of time to venture into this technology. But we take this kind of a business break to really focus on how we can adapt these technologies into our business. To name few, like a digitalization, industry 4.0, system engineering. This is not new, like we have been talking about this in several industries. Big data, and last but not the least, electric mobility in the form of VTOL, vertical and takeoff landing. So with this line of ideas we have, and we want to make sure that all the aerospace community members, students, practicing engineers should take benefit of participating in this platform and gain a lot of insight from the experts. The challenges are always there, whether it's a business or COVID. Let us face them with the resilience. I welcome you all in advance for the AeroCON 2020. Thank you very much. Over to you, Venki.
Thank you, Domo, for the introduction of SAEINDIA's Aero Board, Aero Forum, and AeroCON. So, ladies and gentlemen, especially students, are you ready for another question? Which is the world's largest air evacuation recorded by Guinness Book of World Records? We'll see the answer in a bit. Time for distinguished guest address now. We at SAEINDIA are indeed very happy and privileged to introduce the next speaker, Mr. A.S. Kiran Kumar, former chairman of ISRO, Indian Space Research Organization, a jewel in India's crown. ISRO's journey from the unassuming fishing village of Tumba near Thiruvananthapuram, Kerala, in St. Mary Magdalene Church, now known as the Mecca of rocket science in India, from 1969 till 2020 is more than remarkable. ISRO has always made our country proud. Take a look at this: 109 spacecraft missions, 77 launch missions, 10 student satellites, 2 re-entry missions, 319 foreign satellites, and they are from 33 countries. ISRO is definitely the jewel of India's crown. Mr. A.S. Kiran Kumar, President, Aeronautical Society of India, distinguished scientist and former chairman, Space Commission and ISRO. Mr. Kiran Kumar is highly accomplished space scientist and engineer with a distinguished career spanning over 4 decades in ISRO in the satellite payload and applications domain. He has made immense contributions to the design and development of electro-optical imaging sensors for airborne, low Earth orbit, and geostationary orbit satellites, starting from Bhaskara to the Mars orbiter missions. Mr. Kiran Kumar is an alumnus of National College, Bangalore. He obtained his physics honors and master's degree in electronics from alumnus of National College, Bangalore, and MTech in physical engineering from the IISc, Bangalore. Kiran Kumar is the recipient of many national and international laurels and awards, including Padma Shri from Government of India in 2014, International Academy of Astronautics laurels for Team Achievement Award for Cartosat in 2008, and for Chandrayaan-1 in 2013. He is a fellow of Indian National Academy of Engineering, Indian Society of Remote Sensing, Institution of Electronics and Telecommunication Engineer, and Indian Meteorological Society, a member of International Academy of Astronautics. We at SAEINDIA are more than privileged to have you in the curtain raiser event of AeroCON 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, Padma Shri A.S. Kiran Kumar. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to people across the globe who are watching this program. And this program, just a second for sharing the content. Probably it needs to be enabled.
Yes, sir. You can actually press the share button and then, is it a PPT, sir?
It's a PPT, but at this point, probably it is not yet enabled for me.
We are able to hear your voice. So
yeah, I know. I'm only talking about sharing the PPT. It needs to be enabled.
Okay. Host, can you enable the share?
Come. Yeah, it has come now.
Please go ahead. Yeah, we are able to see the screen now.
Yeah. Okay, I think probably it's seen now.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
We are seeing the blue screen, desktop screen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kindly go ahead and share.
Let me
yes,
thank
we're able to see the PowerPoint presentation.
For providing this opportunity to be part of this program where within the country you're trying to bring together people from different domains of aerospace industry to get together and exchange information. And particularly in today's scenario of pandemic, what we need to, of course, what you have put for topics for discussion will be reimagining aerospace industry in post-COVID era, technology landscape and imperatives, taking off India's role in disruptive technology, challenges and opportunities for various segments. So what I would like to just tell is, see, we, even during these space activities, what we have been doing, you always encounter different events, whether it is dealing with disasters or disruptive events. Disaster, for example, the space program itself, from the very beginning, it started when Dr. Vikram Sarabhai looked at making use of the space technology for the country's development. One of the key things he was looking at is how can we deal with the cyclones which are causing huge problems to the country. So the disasters are, they could be, if you look at disasters or disruptive events, there will be a pre-event duration and during the event itself and post. These three phases you work and then try and do things. See, if you look at typically the normal disasters or disruptive events, some are natural and many are man-made. Now, whether our present pandemic is a natural or a man-made is still a matter of big debate which is going on. But anyway, not worrying about how it has come. The real issue will be with respect to the way we are going to deal with them and the way we are going to work with them. So in a typical time, what happens is you always get ready for a pre-event depending on the kind of knowledge base you create, you develop models and you start looking at providing early warnings to the disaster events. And particularly this is true for many of the events which occur, natural disaster, whether it is cyclone or forest fire or even various climate change related things. In all this, the efforts of developing models and then providing early warnings, this is what generally happens, and that's how you start getting prepared. And even for the current pandemic, it was not that it was not modeled or it was not in a way told. Probably some of you would remember what Bill Gates had said in a YouTube program or a particular program a couple of years back, and even what the various COVID-related things, SARS things, or Ebola, which had happened earlier. And based on that, it was actually foreseen that humanity could encounter events like this particular pandemic. But then preparedness for dealing with that and how much we are ready to accept these such warnings is also an issue which is continuously evolving and we need to worry about. Then, of course, during the event itself, see today what has happened in the pandemic is in many ways unprecedented, though we may like to think that yes, it is something maybe similar to many of the big events that have happened, whether it was the 1918 event or the likes. But today, simply because of the progress the humanity has made in the areas of communication, in the areas of transportation, and in the area of connectivity, the physical process of connectivity of the entire globe has made this particular event unfold so rapidly across the globe that today the entire globe is seeing the impact of few grams or few nanograms of a life material which is causing havoc. In fact, in some ways, it's also possible to see these nano life forms are trying to survive in their own way. They are trying to find hosts through whom they can survive and progress. But then, in that process, they are causing so much of problem to human life that we are facing the situation. During the event itself, people are trying to see how we can minimize the impact, how we can reduce the spread, and many of these things are happening. Of course, the post event is another thing where we are all really interested. And what the AeroCON is expected to do is, of course, as a post event of this particular pandemic, what are the things one could expect? What are the areas in which current thinking is going on? How one should face these problems are the many things that the actual AeroCon itself will be addressing. And I'm sure people who are preparing or who are going to be participating and then giving their versions of the various developments of the technology, etc., are going to make it really very interesting by addressing the issues that one looks at. And again, looking at what this COVID-19 pandemic has done is, in fact, a part not only aerospace, but many sectors across the globe has got affected because, in a way, every human being has seen the impact of this. And because of this, the manner in which the whole scenario plays out is going to be very different. Just to look at few of the things, all sectors have suffered a negative impact from the containment measures put in place to stem the spread of virus. Aviation sector is paying very heavy price, cancelled flights, then the global aviation forecast, which was at least 6% growth by the end of 2020, and seeing that the activities have remained. What activities have remained active is only transport of people for repatriation or essential goods such as food and healthcare products. And of course, it also brings in a huge amount of opportunity for technology and solution providers because in the way of dealing with the situation, airports have to deal with continuous, whether it's body temperature measurement, social distancing, touchless operations, improved controls and management, people flow monitoring and management. In all these areas, there is a tremendous change in the way things are going to happen. And also, many of the control systems that existed, like when touchless operation, how can a passenger get through the whole process of the airport activities? These are issues which are actually grabbing the attention of technology developers and bringing solutions to them. Aerospace also faces an inventory pileup of unwanted aircraft ordered in the heyday that may be met up to 5 years, and COVID-19 has burst the bubble that was fueled by air traffic, global economic growth, business and leisure trends, triggering massive cutbacks in capacity, layoffs, and other. order cancellation all along the supply chain. Of course, this and many more things will be actually probably be talked about and discussed in greater detail during the AeroCON itself. And my idea here is just to bring few of the aspects and touch upon the way the AeroCON itself should address the issues. Now, the contractions in terms of force, depth, and duration, will it force the industry to consolidate and emerge on the other side in a more efficient, integrated, but maybe with fewer players? The question. But in everything, one of the key things that we need to appreciate is sustainability. Among the technological innovations, it is necessary to emphasize sustainable measures, eco-sustainability, use of renewable energy resources. These become very important. And in fact, just to look at few of the things, how innovations make a difference. I just want to, while going through some of the internet material, I saw way back in 2016 an article by a person, George Nisar, where he was talking about is India's ISRO disrupting global space exploration and launch missions. He was looking at what ISRO was doing while we ourselves are only concentrating on building launch vehicles, building satellites, and the excess capacity we had, we were trying to make use of it for providing opportunities to the entrepreneurs and others for providing their small satellite launches. This was in 2016, much before our 104 satellite launch. He was talking of what is a disruptive innovation, an innovation that creates a new market and value network and eventually disrupts an existing market and value network. Then if you look at in ISRO itself, it was on the throes of entering into a phase of disruptive innovation by offering low-cost launches to the advanced and developing nations, not because they did not have the capability, but because many of the entrepreneurs and the new people who were entering into the program required agile systems to provide launch opportunity. And what ISRO's Mars mission itself showcased that the whole program can be done in a very different way. Just to remind you, in fact, this September 24, we will be completing 6 years of Mars orbiter mission, while originally we had planned it for 6 months of operation around the Mars. Now, the other characteristic of disruption is that they tend to get business model right than just the product of service. Now, in fact, if you look at how the 104 satellites activity itself went, while globally the launch of more than one satellite in a launcher, how it happened. Initially, we did way back in 99, 3 satellites, and then in 2004 of them. And you can also see how globally things were going on. And when in 2017, 104 satellites went up, it became a sort of a record for the global innovation aspects. And here, if you look at the elements of disruptive innovation, you are looking at whether it's a low-cost, innovative business model or economically coherent value networks or regulations and standards that facilitate changes or sophisticated channel technology that simplifies. And sustaining innovation is another very important aspect, and disruptive innovation is also an important aspect we have to pay attention to. And in all this, what is important is how disruptive is going to be the future. Now, I just want to give one example. Probably all of you are quite familiar that in 1998, Kodak had 170,000 employees and sold 85% of all photo paper worldwide. But within just a few years, their business model disappeared and they got bankrupt. What happened to Kodak will happen to a lot of industries, and it's a future where more and more disruptive innovations and changes are going to continuously occur. It is not that the digital cameras were invented just around recently, but though it was done in 75, the time for it came only recently. In the same manner, if you look at artificial intelligence, health, autonomous and electric cars, education, 3D printing. Most of these are going to make an impact. Just also thought would be interesting to see the 10 interesting characteristics of a disruptive innovation as per Bernard Shiva in one of the articles where he has put. He says, you start with a purpose and work on small ideas.
Sir, we are not able to hear you, Mr. Kiran Kumar.
Look at what he really needs, not what he claims he needs. Try to connect points to arrive at a whole. Create value in everything one does. Disrupt people, not industries or systems. How people look at the world. Try to change the fringe group first and then attempt to core group later. Understand the fact, then attempt the obvious. Disruptive innovation is going to make a big impact in the way the business and organizations from around the world are going to influence humanity and the development in coming centuries. But now, if you look at today's scenario, the world was moving towards using capabilities across the globe in an interchangeable manner. An integration was what was happening. People were moving in a manner which was very different. But what this pandemic has done, and also subsequent geopolitical events which are happening, the approach of the nations and the people who are governing the nations are looking at very different aspect of life today. They are now more conscious of whether they should allow the country to be susceptible for dependence on outside the country. So issues like Atmanirbhar again comes into picture, and then sustainability again, whether you look at climate change impact or the impact of these pandemics, and in future also, it's not that this is just one pandemic which has come and you will find some vaccines for that and it will go away. There'll be many more such things which should be happening. So these could become the manner in which the entire country's work, the entire country runs, and the way the international community works together. They're all going to be huge challenges. And in fact, it is in these challenging times, based on what we have learned in the past, how we prepare ourselves for the future, whether the models on which we are working, are they going to work, are the real issues which we need to really grapple with and worry about. And while many of the things that has happened in a particular manner, but today's scenario, if you look at the geopolitical situation, the trust and credibility of international interactions has taken a big hit, and how the various entities, whether it's aerospace itself, again, if you look at earlier era, as man conquered land, ocean, air, and now space being the fourth frontier, so he's going to use the space, is again a huge opportunity for the enterprise and commercial entities. Today, you have a huge number of commercial entities doing what governments are not able to do today. And in the future, more and more, these entities are going to adapt and then explore space, provide tourism opportunities, and then exploit even asteroids, mining, and all that. So the opportunity is huge, opportunity is tremendous, but then how we are going to interact with each other, how we are going to overcome the problems of this trust is going to be playing a big role. And I'm sure while change is the essence, we should be willing to surrender what you are today to what you could become. While the planet itself, for enabling the survival of life on this planet, like what India has been showing, Indian heritage, a civilization which has survived, for the longest surviving civilization, what it has shown the world is don't look at things in piecemeal, look at it in its entirety. If life has to survive on this planet Earth, we need to pay attention to everything, and only then we will be able to make sure not only will we leave this what we have enjoyed to the next generation, but we also will allow a future generation to do a greater understanding and bring better consciousness to life. So let me wish this AeroCon curtain riser event and also the actual AeroCon event itself a great success where people will actually grapple with issues of this kind and then showcase to the listeners and the youngsters and the new entrepreneurs a way forward. Thank you very much for this opportunity to share some of my thoughts and ideas on this.
Thank you very much, sir. I think it was a much needed guidance for the Indian aerospace industry. We are very happy and privileged to listen to such in-depth tips from your 40 years of experience in the space industry. Thank you so much once again for sparing your time. Change is definitely the essence of life. In fact, to tell you the truth,
AeroCon 2020.
in the very first dinner meeting last year with Murli and Muni, we never visualized that we'll be sitting in a curtain raiser event like this. And we had a different plan altogether. But thank you very much for sparing your time, sir. Once again, on behalf of SA India, President, Senior VP, OC, SC, and everybody on behalf of SA International also. So, ladies and gentlemen, the silent listeners on the YouTube and the FB, you are around 500 to 600 people now. Thank you for staying. It is late in the night, and some of you have given me the chat. What is the answer to the question? Very quickly, I'm not going to take time. The question was, which is the world's largest air evacuation recorded by Guinness Book of World Records? The answer is the Gulf War in Kuwait, 1990. Air India brought back 170,000 innocent Indians. The mission lasted over 50 days and were recorded as the world's largest air evacuation. Okay, so that should be interesting. You've heard eminent personalities talking. Ladies and gentlemen and members and industry professionals, this is what we do at SA India. Focus on knowledge dissemination and advance the mobility community of India. For those tired eyes, a video is coming. So I'm going to request SA India office team to play curtain raiser video, and I promise you it's going to be a short one. Over to the host. Please play the video.
AeroCon 2020.
And kindly mute everybody.
Technology has always been on the forefront for aerospace industry. It incubated, nurtured and matured many advanced technologies, from composites to advanced sensors to
Venki, there is
integrated
no
vehicle
noise,
health
no
management.
voice in the film. Can you please tell the audience?
Sure.
Currently, aerospace
host,
industry is
in
flying
Webex,
through
we are not
turbulence due
getting
to
the volume.
COVID-19 and is preparing to bounce
It's
back.
probably playing
It is
in
time to
the-
deliberate how aerospace
Can somebody look at it,
ecosystem,
please?
from OEM to operator to MRO to regulator, will meet these challenges. India is now an emerging high-valued hub of global aerospace
AeroCon
industry
2020.
with its state-of-art facilities, skills in disruptive technologies, engineering
Technology
R&D
has
centers,
always been on the
laboratories
forefront
and
for
modern
aerospace
manufacturing
industry.
facilities.
It incubated,
India's aerospace
nurtured and
industry
matured
is
many
one of the
advanced
fastest growing in
technologies,
the world.
from composites to advanced sensors to integrated vehicle health management.
While globally the aerospace and defense industry has been rapidly
Currently,
advancing with new
aerospace
technologies
industry is
and
flying through
artificial
turbulence
intelligence,
due to
the Indian
COVID-19
government
and is
also
preparing to
actively
bounce
promoting
back.
indigenization
It is
with
time to
cutting-edge
deliberate how
technologies by
aerospace
manufacturing
ecosystem, from OEM to
Make
operator
in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat. SAE India's Aerospace Forum, in collaboration with SAE International, is conducting a premier aerospace conference AeroCON 2020. This conference aims at bringing together aerospace professionals to discuss the challenges and identify opportunities during and post-COVID era for the entire aerospace ecosystem. The conference provides a forum for the aerospace community to discuss and debate on technology landscape, imperatives and its relevance in post-COVID era. This conference will be conducted in virtual online mode, making it convenient for the broader community from across the globe to participate. Meet the global leaders and get their perspective to reimagine and reshape aerospace industry during and post-COVID. Can India play an important role in disruptive technologies in post-COVID era? How will the technology landscape change? Do you want to know more? Come and join us at AeroCON 2020.
It's now time to listen to the second keynote speaker, chief guest of the evening, Mr. Sharpreet Singh Shani, Senior Representative Asia Pacific of FAA. He is based in Singapore for the FAA Office of Aviation Safety Aircraft Certification Service. He is responsible for the managing bilateral relationship with partner civil aviation authorities and establishing strategic partnership with regional aviation authorities and organizations to promote collaboration in airworthiness and aviation safety initiatives. Prior to this, Mr. Sarpreet served as a manager of the International Division for the Aircraft Certification Service and provided leadership in the development of international strategy at the organization and FAA level. Sarpreet joined FAA in 2002 as a certification engineer. He has served in airworthiness policy, safety oversight, and international relations position in his career with FAA. Prior to FAA, he was with Atlas Air Inc., where he was an aerospace engineer and manager responsible for Boeing 747, 200, and 400 freighter engineering and management maintenance programs. Sarpreet holds Bachelor's Science in Mechanical Engineering, Master of Science in Management, both from the New York University Stanton School of Engineering. He is a proud New Yorker. Correct, Mr. Shani? He also holds FAA airframe and power plant licenses, and he is going to talk from Singapore. Thank you for joining us. Over to Mr. Shani.
Thank you. Hope everyone can hear me. Thank you for that very kind introduction.
Thank you.
Let me also start sharing my PPT. Again, and I'm with the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration. Let's see here. Here we go. Okay, I have to say this is truly an honor and a privilege for me to have this opportunity to speak amongst such distinguished guests and the audience members. So I want to just take a minute to thank the organizers for this opportunity to share our progress and work on UAS, also known as drones or UAVs, and their integration into the airspace. I want to jump right into the presentation, and recognizing that our time is limited, I will try and speed up, but really focus the time that I have on some of the important slides and information that I would like to share. So fortunately for me, some of the key terms have already been shared. Disruptive technology is something you've heard from speakers before me. And I think everyone will agree that unmanned aircraft systems and drones are just that, disruptive technology. And my presentation today will, let's move on, will focus on some of those key areas where, one, how has the FAA been progressing in safely integrating unmanned aircraft systems into our national airspace in the U.S., and also how these UAS and drone operations have been supporting the COVID-19 global health emergency. But I think it's important to also begin with the US-India partnership and how closely we've been working on various UAS-related efforts. So just to briefly touch on some of the recent engagements that we've had, before I touch on these, I just want to remind the audience that the United States and India have a long-standing relationship when it comes to aviation safety. In fact, this relationship was formalized in a country-to-country bilateral aviation safety agreement between us back in 2011. And that agreement serves as an important tool and a platform for us to have very close cooperation and engagement in various aspects of our aviation system. But of course, today I'm going to be specifically focusing in on our UAS integration engagement. So looking at some of these bullets here, as you can see, the first one, the Airports Authority of India visited the FAA headquarters in Washington, D.C. on a number of aviation safety subjects, including UAS integration. And then in October of last year, our former FAA senior representative for South Asia, based in India, Mr. Thomas Miller, spoke on FAA's UAS integration efforts at the World Economic Forum Drone Innovator Network event hosted by India. And then in June, India participated in the FAA's UAS traffic management concept of operations webinar. And then same month, we were requested by the India's Ministry of Civil Aviation to review and kindly provide comments back on India's draft UAS rule. And that's actually a very common practice between us civil aviation authorities, where we frequently ask our partners globally to review our proposed rulemaking. In fact, the FAA has a formal process under which we post our proposed rulemaking activity publicly for comments. And we appreciate this collaboration and this close partnership with India. Last couple of items there, the U.S.-India Aviation Summit, which is an annual event. And of course, unfortunately, due to the current COVID-19 crisis, it's been tentatively rescheduled to the first half of 2021. It was supposed to happen in Washington, D.C. in September, but now we are looking forward to hosting it in 2021. The last item I want to mention here briefly is the Unmanned Aircraft Systems Certification Working Group It's a working group that the FAA and Singapore co-sponsored back in 2017 with India as a key partner amongst other Asia-Pacific civil aviation authorities. And it really has been a shining light when it comes to the close cooperation regarding our approach to certification of unmanned aircraft systems. So this is one where we're proud to have India as our partner in engaging in this working group. And the working group has actually been doing great work and also submitted some of their progress to ICAO at the last General Assembly. Another slide here just to highlight some of the more academia engagement that's happening. We have the Virginia Tech India Center for Advanced Research and Education. Many of you may be aware of the Virginia Tech India Center for Research Excellence in Education in Chennai and the excellent work in drone operations research conducted there. If we had more time, I think it would have been great to go into some of the details of their work because it's quite exciting, especially for this audience. But again, it's very good to hear about the science and technology education opportunities in India. The FAA has a variety of programs designed to strengthen interest in science, technology, engineering, and math, or as we refer to as the STEM fields. We actually gone one step further by specializing in fields you might expect the FAA to highlight with our program known as STEM AVSED, or STEM Aviation and Space Education. The program has several opportunities available for students, and there is a web link at the bottom of this slide. I invite you and encourage you to visit a wealth of information I think you'll find at this website. And before I move on, I also want to just briefly mention that you might have heard me just mention that our senior representative in the region, Mr. Thomas Miller, he has moved on to another position back in Washington, D.C. And I want to announce that his replacement, it's been an appointment made, and Mr. Vishal Amin will be joining the post in India soon. He will be our South Asia representative for the FAA in the region. So the next slide here, I want to spend some time on this slide. I think you'll find that this is an important slide which highlights some of the key milestones that some that we have hit and some that are planned for the future. So we refer to this as our UAS integration strategy, and UAS are fundamentally changing aviation. As you know, we referred to it as disruptive technology. Right now in the US, we have 4 times as many UAS registered than we have manned aircraft, and that gap is growing. Eventually, they're all going to operate in the same airspace, so we have to be ready for this. But first, we have to safely introduce those new aircraft and their unique operations into the airspace and continue to build the regulatory framework that's going to oversee all of these operations. This slide shows some of the incremental regulatory and operational milestones on the way to full integration. The dark blue milestones are those that we've completed or nearly completed, and I'll highlight specifically the remote identification and operations over people. A proposed rule for these two are currently available, and these are the next big steps really for us to accomplish. They are foundational for addressing safety and security concerns associated with full integration of UAS into our airspace. The light blue and the white colored milestones are underway or future steps that we intend to take towards full integration. I also want to highlight that while it's not explicitly stated here, another important milestone for full UAS integration into our airspace, especially in the more complex and high-risk operations, is type certification. So when I talk about Part 135 certification, and I'll briefly mention it here in a bit, those companies that have received Part 135 certification from the FAA need to further achieve type certification to fully realize the potential of their UAS commercial operations. Remote ID is an important building block, as I mentioned, of the unmanned traffic management ecosystem, and the remote identification network will form the foundation for the development of other technologies that can enable expanded operations. In May 2020, Transportation Secretary Chow identified 8 companies who will work with the FAA to help establish requirements for future suppliers of remote identification. I mentioned Part 135 just a while ago, and on that topic, FAA Air Carrier and Operator Certification, which is what 135 certification is, I want to share that we currently have 3 companies, Wing Aviation, UPS Flight Forward, and Amazon, who have obtained this Part 135 certification from the FAA, which allows them to conduct package delivery for compensation and hire. But again, as I mentioned, to realize the full potential of that, at some point they will likely be requesting and hopefully with success receiving their type certification as well. The more complex or risky the operation, the higher the level of safety that needs to be achieved. And that's essentially what this UAS integration strategy is all about. We have adopted a strategy of operations first approach, and I will talk a little bit more about this during one of the later slides. This slide, I won't spend too much time here. It's just a slide that provides a snapshot of the scale of UAS certification and operations activities which we are dealing with in the US at this time. Just to highlight a couple of items on here, as you can see, we recently authorized 392 emergency operations for hurricanes. Another one here that you can see is that over 230 beyond visual line of sight and operations over people waivers were granted by the FAA for operations. And of course, as you can see there, we're approaching over 500,000 registered commercial unmanned aircraft in the US. So again, I'll leave this slide with you as just a snapshot of some key facts and figures that give you a scale of this disruptive technology that we're dealing with. And really, it's not just the US, this is a global impact. The one thing I want to leave you with is that this slide is a good reminder for all of us that collaboration between all the stakeholders is the key to achieving our mutual safety objectives in this diverse UAS landscape. Some of you are familiar with FAA's UAS traffic management or UTM ecosystem concept for safely introducing UAS operations into the national airspace. This is an operational concept of the UTM and our traditional air traffic management system. Considering the makeup of this audience, I decided to put up a different slide while finishing my comments on UAS integration. So this slide here, I thought would be more appealing to the engineering nature, the technical nature of this audience. Although we won't be going into a great detail here, I just want to quickly highlight a few things. Keep in mind that the UTM is an ecosystem, one that is constantly under construction, with new capabilities bringing advanced functionalities. Some components of the UTM are in place, such as aircraft registration, airspace access processes, and these have been working for a few years. Remote identification will provide information flows necessary for UTM functions. Advances in technology will be key for detect and avoid and beyond visual line of sight operations. This past March, the FAA released its UTM concept of operations, something I mentioned earlier. This publicly available document goes a long way towards explaining the details of this architecture. In fact, this picture came from that document. So as you can see, the color key there provides all of the key players, the manufacturers, the operators, the air navigation service providers. So unfortunately, don't have a lot of time to deep dive into this, but again, I just wanted to share with you sort of the complexities of what we're dealing with. Moving on to standards development, another important element of safely introducing and integrating UAS into our airspace. So I've been speaking of our partnerships quite a bit. This slide speaks to our engagement with stakeholders on standards development and airworthiness policy. Our strategy of operations first, a term that I used earlier, is allowing us to use the existing regulatory framework, which helps us ensure innovation can drive forward. Said another way, over the last 3 years, we've shifted from writing rules to getting machines in the air and flying, and taking lessons learned from the operations and approval process to write better rules and better standards. This vision to integrate rather than segregate the UAS into the NAS is really what's driving this approach. As a final subject on this very brief overview of FAA's US integration efforts, I want to highlight the importance of standards development, especially for this audience. So just to highlight some of the key points here, global harmonization and interoperability are amongst the FAA's top priorities and are key to safer, secure, and faster integration of UAS into the airspace. The FAA strongly supports American National Standards Institute's UAS Standards Collaborative role to accelerate development of standards and conformity assessment programs required for UAS integration. ANSI's UAS roadmap identifies UAS integration standards gaps and recommendations. Recommendations which are well aligned with FAA rules, guidance, and policies. Standards development organizations are addressing these gaps and recommendations to support UAS certification, including type certification, production certification, and airworthiness certification, and any other certifications that might be required. New technologies like detect and avoid, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, a UAS navigation system, and blockchain for UAS, collision avoidance systems are all being worked as standards development by these standards development organizations. These technologies will be key enablers for UAS integration. The roadmap has been well coordinated with other UAS integration activities and is driving force for integration efforts worldwide. We are working to assure that there is alignment between these efforts. And that's what this slide is showing, that we want to assure that ultimately all these efforts that are going on globally are aligned with the efforts of civil aviation authorities such as the FAA, where we're developing rules and guidance and policies to eventual FAA certification using accepted industry standards. So now shifting to the current health crisis that we're dealing with and how UAS and drones are playing a key role. I'm going to skip a few points here just to kind of speed up to some of the more operational aspects. Both the FAA and industry recognize the potential positive impact drones, unmanned aircraft systems have to fight the pandemic by safely delivering vital goods such as food, water, medical supplies, and ultimately the challenges we face to mitigate the risk of spreading COVID-19 involve things like safe distancing. So when we talk about contactless delivery, as you can imagine, drones play an important role. So what this slide shows is the FAA's UAS playbook. and as to how we are supporting COVID-19 response efforts regarding the use of drones. We have our operations under Part 107, small UAS regulations, which cover a broad spectrum of commercial and government use for drones, which weigh less than 55 pounds. Then we have operations under our Part 135 certification, air carrier package delivery type of operations, and the SGI, or Special Government Interest Operations, which are waivers and authorizations that we grant for special government interest operations, such as response efforts to combat the spread of COVID-19 and help those affected, provided that the operation constitutes an emergency and is time critical. Some more information about our public safety outreach. These special governmental interest requests from public safety organizations will receive priority by the FAA. They must be associated with a real-time critical emergency event and support a government-identified need. For an emergency operation, FAA's Operations Center can collect information over the phone, coordinate with the appropriate air traffic facility, and usually provide verbal authorization within minutes of notification. COVID-19 operations, the recent health emergency requires risk mitigation actions from the public, and UAS operations play a unique role in supporting these actions. As I mentioned earlier, in order to reduce the risk of getting COVID, we need to practice social distancing, and UAS provide contactless delivery solutions. And our healthcare community needs support to manage those that are sick, and UAS again support these initiatives by providing timely transportation. Here's just a snapshot of our approvals for UAS operations supporting anti-COVID operations. And the next few slides actually I think are a bit more exciting because they highlight some of the more practical operations that we have recently approved and authorized and have occurred. So let's move on to the next few slides. Here is an example. So these next few slides, as I mentioned, they provide some details on specific UAS COVID-19 operations. This one here by Flightrex. As you can see, this operation by Flightrex is under our Part 107 visual line of sight with visual observers. It is providing essential items in a contactless manner. Flightrex is a UAS services company with operations in North Dakota and Iceland. Here's another operation. This one here is by our United Parcel Service, a well-known package delivery company whose flight forward service was launched in June of 2019. These are again operations under our Part 107 visual line of sight. They're delivering medications to residents in a contactless manner and limiting the exposure of public during this period. So these residents don't have to leave their residence to go collect these medications. This operation was also granted an operations over people waiver by the FAA. This is another example of a UPS operation in support of the ongoing health emergency. This another example where UAS operation is supporting our frontline healthcare workers. Here you will note that distance is significant at approximately 14 miles in one direction, requiring beyond visual line of sight with visual observers. It might be difficult for you to see the yellow lines depicting the UAS routes among the Novant health facilities here. The Novant Health partnered with Zipline, a San Francisco-based UAS company with medical delivery operations in Rwanda and Ghana as well. So again, another important sector that this disruptive technology is serving during this unique period of this global health emergency. So that concludes, and in closing, what I'd like to emphasize the importance of this opportunity to speak with all of you so that we can collectively focus on global alignment of the safe integration of drones in our respective airspaces and look forward to a seamless global operations so that industry can progress and prosper around the world. There are no other alternatives, really. And if industry is to succeed, we as technical experts and regulators must help them do this safely. We do this by collaborating to develop safety-enhancing technology, performance-based standards, conducting public outreach to increase awareness, conducting effective safety oversight, recruiting and preparing the workforce of the future, maintaining the highest level of safety while embracing innovation and the pace of change is a key part of achieving success for all of us here and around the world. Without safety as a foundation, we cannot have a vibrant aviation industry in any country, much less between countries. As it is, our international transportation network is a tightly woven fabric that is dependent on all of us making safety our core value. So again, thank you to the organizers. And if there are any questions, please submit them to the organizers, and we'll be sure to provide you responses since we're not able to do so at this time. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Shani. I think it was a talk filled with a lot of facts and guidance. Indian aerospace community and global aerospace community needs it. Any questions from the audience, members, students, faculty members, please do so in the chat window. After another session, we can take it up. So far, we have not received. So on behalf of SAE India and AeroCON committee, thank you so much, Mr. Shani.
Thank you.
So ladies and gentlemen, we are going to move on to the next one. And you have noticed that there is no quiz questions and answers. Don't worry, I'm coming back with that. I am going to invite the three notable executives of Indian aerospace industry to give you an overview of AeroCON 2020. Why are we doing this event? This evening is basically to let you know what we're going to do in AeroCON 2020 in November. So the first speaker will be Dr. GVV Ravi Kumar, Technical Committee Chair of AeroCON 2020. Meanwhile, I have a request to host. Can you please give Dr. Ravi Kumar the access so that he can share the presentation? Dr. GVV Ravi Kumar is the Associate Vice President at Infosys. He is also committee member in SA International for G31. He is an active volunteer on SA India's Aerospace Forum. In fact, the whole program has been put together under his leadership. And thank you for the technical committee. Over to you, Dr. Ravi Kumar.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir. If you could put it on the slideshow mode. Yeah.
Yes, it is on slideshow mode.
Yes.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, the entire aerospace family across the globe. Thank you for your wonderful participation so far. You have seen the wonderful presentations in the Curtain Riser event. Let us look at what we have planned for the main event that is going to be held on November 5th and 6th. We have planned this particular event on 2 days. Okay, day one is essentially looking at two themes, one business theme and one technology theme. And day two, one business theme and one technology theme. The entire conference has been structured under the theme of reimagining aerospace. Essentially, the theme that we have put together is flying through turbulence and reimagining aerospace. So Around that theme, we have structured these 4 broad sessions. In day 1, we will have the inaugural session where 5 leading aerospace leaders are going to talk to you. We will have the inaugural address by our president of SAE India, Dr. Bala Bharadwaj. Then we will have the overview of the SHI, Mr. Damodaran, and we will have the message from SAE International, essentially the president of SAE International, Mr. Paul, is going to give a kind of a small presentation. We have two guests of honor. Yes.
Sorry, Ravi. Paul is no longer the president. We can just take out that picture. The current president for 2020, as I said earlier, Todd Zephyr. Yeah, we'll just say their message from SA International.
Correct.
And I will come back to you, as I said, about the name, particular name, whether it was the president or the CEO.
Okay,
sorry about that.
Thanks, Murali. Sorry for that mistake. I apologize for that. Then we have 2 guests of honors. The first guest of honor is Dr. Preet Banerjee. He's going to give a small address. He is the CTO of ANSYS. Then second guest of honor will be Dr. V. Sumantran, Chairman, Solaris Technologies. As part of the first business team, we are going to structure our presentations and the panel discussions around reimagining aerospace industry in post-COVID era. We have the keynote speaker, Mr. Pradeep Fernandez, Managing Director, Boeing Confident Travel Initiative Strategy. He is going to present that keynote speech. Then we have a wonderful panel. The panel discussion will be moderated by Dr. Kota Harinarayana, who is former Chief Designer, Program Director, LCA Program. And we have a distinguished panel, Mr. Jairam, Head of Engineering, Rolls-Royce, Mr. Manasvi, Head of Engineering, Bombardier, Mr. Emmanuel, Country Director, Thales, Sam Karigari, Managing Director, Moog India. Then in day 1, as part of the technology theme 1, we have technology landscape in post-COVID era. This particular theme will have 1 keynote speech and 1 panel discussion. The keynote speech will be addressed by Mr. Savyasachi Srinivas, Executive Director at Collins Aerospace. Then the panel discussion will be moderated by Professor Ranjan Ganguly from ISC Bangalore. We have distinguished panelists in this particular panel. We have Mr. Nitesh Bansal, Senior Vice President and Global Head Engineering Services, Infosys. We have Dr. Sameer, Worldwide Industry Marketing Director, MathWorks. Dr. Uma, Chief Consulting Engineer, GE Aviation. Mr. Sivakumar, Engineering Director, Honeywell Technologies Solutions. In day 2, as part of the initial inaugural session, we have keynote speech from Enrico Schorlach. He is a Senior Director, Aerospace and Defense Dassault Systems. As part of the business theme 2, we have challenges and opportunities for safe and sustainable operations. Essentially, this entire theme centers around the aircraft operations and maintenance. We have a keynote speaker here, Mr. Remy Maillard, President of Airbus India and Head of Southeast Asia, is going to give that keynote speech. We have a distinguished panel. The panel will be moderated by a senior person from DGCA. We have panelists, 4 distinguished panelists on this panel. Mr. Anand Bhaskar, Managing Director, CEO of Airworks. Dr. Subhajit, Director and Head Strategic Planning, Indigo Airlines. Ms. Rhonda Walthall, the Fellow, Collins Aerospace, and a leading person from SAE International. He is going to be there. And then we have Lugi Selmi, who is going to be there, who is from the Lufthansa Technic. So he is going to be there on the panel. Then we have the technology team too, essentially looking at taking off disruptive technologies in aerospace. More specifically, we have centered this particular theme around the next generation disruptions that are essentially the drones and other advanced emerging technologies. We have a distinguished keynote speaker for this particular session, Mr. Ambar Dubey, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Civil Aviation, is going to give that particular speech. Then we have a wonderful panel discussion planned. This panel will be moderated by Professor Ravi Rajamani, Research Professor, University of Connecticut, and Principal Consultant, DRR2 Consulting. Then we have distinguished panel. These are 4 distinguished panel members. Dr. Parimal Koparedkar, he is Director of NASA. Dr. Padmanabhan, Director of Virginia Tech, India Center for Research and Education. Mr. Tom Plummer, CEO, Wingcopter. Mr. Sridhar Dharmarajan, he is EVP and MD, Hexagon. So these are the sessions that have been planned. I wish a great learning for all of us. Come and join us on November 5th and 6th in AeroCON 2020 main event. Over to you, Venki.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi Kumar. That was crisp and simple. May I now invite the Sarathi of AeroCON 2020, the man behind all the operations, putting the pieces together, Mr. Javaji Moniratnam, CEO of Javaji Consulting and a long-time supporter of AeroForum, chair of AeroForum. Over to you, Moni.
Thank you, Venki. Thanks a lot. Thanks to all of you. Again, good evening, good morning, good afternoon to all of you from different part of the world. It's in fact, it's indeed a great privilege to see all of you from different time zones. I'm extremely happy to share some of the key highlights which will be coming in the Mega Aerospace event in November 2020. Like Dr. Ravi has shared briefly, just wanted to let you know that we have top-notch speakers from the world-leading aerospace, aviation, and tech companies like Airbus, Ansys, Boeing, Collins, Dassault, GE, Hexagon, Rolls-Royce, Safran, etc. Besides that, we also have speakers from regulatory bodies like FAA and DGCA. If you look at the total spectrum of the speakers, and these companies, they represent 85% of the global aerospace companies. Hence, participants will get an opportunity to listen to these highly experienced industry leaders. Cumulatively, if you calculate their experiences, 900 plus man years, just their own personal experiences. Imagine their own experiences plus the companies they represent, which means they'll be sharing their rich experiences and also post-COVID business scenarios. They will have a deep discussions on that. Besides the keynote presentations, there will be in-depth panel discussions. I strongly recommend you and your colleagues to join this event. And because we are going to have this in a wonderful high-tech platform, all the participants will have an opportunity to interact with the speakers and the sponsors, etc. This is not going to be another webinar. This is going to be high-tech value conference. I request all of you to take this opportunity and support SAEINDIA activities. Thank you, Venki.
Thank you, Muni. Very quickly, I am going to turn into Mr. Vasant Kini, Chair of Industry Interface Committee of AeroCON 2020. He is the Managing Director of Titanium Industries and a long-time supporter of SAEINDIA's AeroForum. Over to you, Vasant.
Yes. Thank you, Venki, and thank you, Muni, for that wonderful introduction. My name is Vasant Kini, and I've been associated with the SAEINDIA AeroForum since 2012, and it's been a wonderful journey over the last 8 years with all my distinguished colleagues. I would also like to again reiterate the reason why the 600 of you who are joined with us today to register for AeroCON 2020 and also spread the word around within the fraternity to register. This is going to be a virtual forum, so we really don't have any capacity limitations. So, the more the merrier. So we would be delighted to have registrations from India, from the student fraternity, from the industry fraternity, and also from all over the world. So we would be really happy if you would reach out to your colleagues across the world, and many of you all are working for global corporations. So we would be happy to have a global participation for the AeroCON event. Having said this, I think this has already been covered, but this is something which I would which is pretty dear to my heart. Also, is that SAE governs a lot of standards, and I've worked a lot of standards with in my own business, and AMS being one of them. And today was a revelation for me, Mr. Murli telling me that the Russian standards were actually derived from the SAE standards. So that's something remarkable that that it has happened. So with this, I would also like to again reiterate what my two colleagues have said. That the wealth of the leaders who are going to be speaking, the kind of knowledge which you're going to be imbibed during this 2-day conference is, at the risk of repeating what they've said. I mean, we are talking about Boeing, Airbus, Collins Aerospace, Bombardier, Honeywell, Thales, Safran, Moog, Eaton, HCL, Sasmos, TCS, Lufthansa Technik. Yeah, and some emphasis, Virginia Tech, in NASA, University of Connecticut, Ministry of Civil Aviation, ANSYS, MapWorks, DOSO. I mean, it's just got about everybody who's there. So my appeal to everybody is to register and be there on the 5th and 6th of November. Thank you very much. And over to you, Venki.
Thank you, Vasant. That was simple and crisp. Ladies and gentlemen, audience and MC members who are in the WebEx and social media, this is more for the audience. While our command center is getting ready to stream the videos of sponsors, so Mr. Host, are you ready with the videos? Meanwhile, let me give both question and answer to the audience. Which decade was the most innovative period in aviation industry? Not an easy answer, but an easy answer. 1930s, as many believe, was the most innovative period in aviation history. There were 139 different models of aircraft developed during this decade. And ladies and gentlemen, sponsors or our supporters of this technical conference, we at SAEINDIA would like to recognize their commitment and support to AeroCON 2020. All of them play an important role in the advancement of aerospace industry in one way or another. Thank you, sponsors. AeroCON 2020 title sponsor, ANSYS. Thank you. Principal sponsor, Dassault Systems. Thank you. Platinum sponsor, Infosys and MathWorks. Thank you. Gold sponsor, Hexagon. Thank you. Silver sponsor, Hindustan Institute of Technology and Science. I hope Mr. Host is ready for the video now. Move in what level? Silver. Another silver sponsor. Has it come in 5 minutes before? Thank you, Moog. Another silver sponsor, adding to the credibility of the event. So, host, are you ready? Please.
If you're engineering the next generation of aerospace and defense systems, you're facing a wave of rising complexity. To thrive in this new competitive marketplace, you need to do more in less time with less resources. You need to increase productivity If you were very first design next generation to operations and defense systems, you need to think differently away in a pervasive digital environment to thrive in this new competitive transformation. You need fully integrated, multi-physics simulation/resources with the engineering industry's leading simulation from the very first design, completely customized operations, open maintenance, scalable. You need to think differently with the power of high-performance compute. Deliver over world-class cloud connectivity with fully integrated multidisciplinary design simulations to collaborate as a whole with the engineering to capture and reuse the knowledge they generate, completely customizable, all in the service of productivity. Putting the odds in your favor of high performance, allowing you to innovate faster over world-class resource connectivity at lower costs. Multidisciplinary design teams to collaborate as a whole, celebrating 50 years in engineering productivity in aerospace and defense. ANSYS.
Over a century, pioneers of aerospace and defense have dared to redefine the extent of what's possible. But the challenges are increasing dramatically. As populations expand, more people are flying, and the need for quieter, greener and cleaner hybrid, electric, and hydrogen-powered aircraft is imminent. Disruptive players, technologies, and new methods of urban air mobility are forcing innovation at unprecedented speed, exploring uncharted horizons, commercializing space, restaging the moon to explore Mars, and allowing humans to live on other planets. It is time to reinvent the sky, empowering innovators by simulating real-world conditions in a virtual world. Using collective intelligence through cloud-enabled innovation, progress is fueled by the agility and efficiency of the future factory, transforming supply chains through digital continuity, and deploying additive manufacturing at industrial scale. By accelerating development from concept to operations by up to 50%, Dassault Systèmes 3D Experience Platform empowers companies to solve the world's challenges, ensure a safe passenger experience, and create a sustainable future by harmonizing product, nature, and life. In a future made possible by virtual universes, experience the future today.
When you catch your next flight, there is a high chance that the plane you're boarding has multiple parts designed and engineered by Infosys. We have partnered with global OEMs for 15 plus aerospace programs with expertise in fuselage, wings, landing gear, nacelle, and pylon. Did you know that Infosys provided an end-to-end solution for a complex composite environmental control system ducting for a leading Tier 1 manufacturer of commercial aircrafts? Infosys started off with concept and developed tools and methods. Did you know that Infosys developed a bird model and performed bird strike analysis using advanced level FEA simulations? This helped in reducing physical tests, which resulted in the reduction of cost and time. Did you know that Infosys has a track record of handling large volume of concessions around the clock, approximately 10,000 per year? Our clients had a large volume of concessions cutting across 3 continents, which resulted in huge backlogs. We have meticulously implemented detailed governance structure in managing the concession activities. We have developed knowledge-based engineering tools, performed concession eradication analysis, along with effective returns management, streamlining performance metrics, and managing stakeholders effectively. Did you know that Infosys leveraged extensive certification experience on 30 plus aircraft variants, authoring 2000 plus airworthiness documents to set up a gold standard dossier? Infosys developed design validation documents, mitigated negative margins without design modifications, in effect also created gold standard analysis templates for certification. Our signatory and sign-off rules have leveraged the client's turnaround time for hundreds of dossiers. Did you know that Infosys established a cost analytic factory framework that can estimate 1,000 plus parts per week? The client had an extensive product portfolio comprising components that are manufactured in-house as well as close to 100,000 parts that are sourced globally. Infosys established a product cost optimization solution to estimate, monitor, and optimize product cost. This included proprietary repositories on labor and overhead rates, templates, and guidelines. A cost analytics platform is also developed as a one-stop solution to achieve these objectives for every stakeholder.
If you're engineering the next generation of aerospace and defense systems, you're facing a wave of rising complexity. To thrive in this new competitive marketplace, you need to do more in less time with less resources. You need to increase productivity from the very first design to operation.
The better person than Muniratnam. Word of thanks by Muniratnam. Over to you, sir. Sir, you're on mute. These are virtual funds.
Thank you, Venki. I remember the nice dinner you hosted to kickstart this event along with Mr. Murali Iyer.
Yeah, that was last year, yes.
Yes. Okay. Again, good evening to all of you. I wanted to keep it quite short here. I'd like to thank Dr. Bala Bharadwaj, President of SA India, and Madam Rashmi, Senior Vice President, SA India, and our good friend, Mr. Murli Iyer, SA International Global Advisor. And most importantly, I'd like to thank our speakers, distinguished speakers, Shri Kiran Kumar for his wonderful speech and encouraging message to all the participants. Sir, I would like to reiterate that disruption is going to be the future. Yes, we will keep that in mind. Thank you so much. And Mr. Sane, it must be very late in the evening for you, but thank you so much for a wonderful insight into regulatory aspect of it. Look forward to having more interaction with you. And like Venki said, without sponsors, this would not have been possible. I wanted to thank each and every sponsor, including the latest sponsor, Mr. Moog and Co. We have already listed the companies. And my colleagues from different committees, we have various committees. I wanted to thank each one of them personally for their immense contribution. As Venki said, we have spent, since 100 days, we have been working on that. And extremely important is to highlight the wonderful effort by Mr. Sheshadri, Aisha, Ilango, Hassan, and nevertheless, their leader, Mr. Venkatraj, for the wonderful effort. We have been pushing them from every corner. It's not easy for them to work, so many leaders, but thank you so much once again, all of you. And again, on behalf of Aerospace Forum and Bangalore section, Mr. Kannan is the chair here. On behalf of them as well, I would like to thank each one of you and look forward to seeing you and look forward for active participation for the November event. Good evening then. Thank you, Venki.
Thank you, Muni. I think we have come to the end of a very good evening technology sharing session. Good night. Have a safe trip if you're traveling. And may I request the whoever's on the WebEx to stay back, and the social media transmission will be stopped in a moment. Whoever is on the WebEx, OCSE members and the leaders, kindly stay on for 5 minutes. And okay, Command Center, can you confirm if we have stopped the social media